Hi there, this is Alaina from the Berwick Public Library, and today I wanted to share with you some movies that we have in our collection that you may not be aware that we own. And these are all available to be picked up through our new curbside service, so you can borrow these at any time. Just give us a call, send us an email, or request them through our online catalog. So I just want to share with you some highlights of movies from our collection, and I'm going to start with the two that I haven't actually seen because they're the ones I have the least to say about. So first is The Lighthouse, and that is with Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe, and this movie takes place in the 1890s on a small island in New England. So kind of a local story. And this is a story really about how these two lighthouse keepers are coming undone during their time on this island. And this is definitely going to be a movie that's not for everybody. I know the people who have already watched it had some mixed opinions. And right in the description of it on the back, it's called hallucinatory. So probably not for everybody, but this did get a lot of hype more recently when the Oscars happened. So if you're interested in The Lighthouse, we do have that available. Another one, this is the other one that I have not seen yet, but I'm very interested in. That is Jojo Rabbit, and I have heard excellent things about this. This was up for Best Picture. And this is a story that takes place during World War II, and we follow a little boy named Jojo, and he has just found out that his mother, who's played by Scarlett Johansson, is hiding a Jewish girl in their attic. And this is a satire, so it's a comedy film, and he has a imaginary friend who is Hitler. So again, maybe not for everybody, but this has gotten wonderful reviews, and the people I know that have seen it already have loved it, and I know I'm interested to check this one out. So that's Jojo Rabbit. And then the rest of these, I can tell you from personal experience, they all get a thumbs up. So this one we've had for a little while, but I don't think gets a lot of attention. That is called The Best of Enemies. This is a movie that came out in 2019 that I admit completely slipped under my radar. I had no idea this movie existed until we got it for the library, and I was blown away by it when I watched it. It is fabulous, so I highly recommend this. This movie is based on a real story, and it stars Taraji P. Henson as Anne Atwater and Sam Rockwell as C.P. Ellis. And actually Sam Rockwell is going to be a recurring theme here because he's also in Jojo Rabbit, and he's in another movie that I've got coming up to recommend as well. So this story takes place in 1971, and it takes place in Durham, North Carolina, and the town of Durham is holding a community summit to discuss desegregating their schools, and they have two people who are chosen to co-chair the summit. So one is Anne Atwater, who is a civil rights activist, and the other is C.P. Ellis, and he is a leader of the Ku Klux Klan. So this is a really powerful movie. It's really interesting. It's something that I was not aware ever happened in history. Really interesting movie. Highly recommend this. So this is The Best of Enemies. Next we have A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood with Tom Hanks as Mr. Rogers and Matthew Rhys as a journalist named Tom Junod. And this story is about that journalist Tom, who's having a really tough time in his life, and he's really cynical, and he's just this jaded journalist who gets assigned to profile Mr. Rogers, and he does not want to do it. That's not the kind of fluffy pieces that he writes. So he's really doesn't believe that Mr. Rogers is as great as everybody says he is. And this is a story about how they developed a real life friendship. And I cannot emphasize this enough. This is not a movie about Mr. Rogers. He is in it, but it is about the journalist, and it is about his relationship with Mr. Rogers, but also with his family. So Mr. Rogers is like something that ties the whole story together, but it is not about him really. And I think that as long as you go into this movie with that in mind, then you'll enjoy it. But if you think this is going to be just about Mr. Rogers, you're going to be disappointed. So this is a good one, as long as, like I said, you have the right frame of mind going in to realize what this story is really about. So that is A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Next is The Farewell. And this is also based on a real story, but the way they say it here on the movie cover is based on an actual lie. And this is a story about well, the main character's name is Billy. And Billy has just found out that her grandmother in China has cancer and she's going to be dying. And apparently what is not unheard of to do in China is that you don't tell somebody when they're dying. That's a burden for the family, that you don't tell the person who is dying that they're dying. You just let them live their life as happily as possible. So her family has chosen not to tell the grandmother that she's going to be dying, and instead that they have arranged to have a wedding. And that is it's a lie, but that's the excuse they have made to all come together in China to see the grandmother one last time. So this is a story that's about family, it's about different cultures, because Billy is American-born Chinese, so she doesn't really excuse me, she's actually born in China but raised in the United States. I forget how long she lived in China, but it was not very long. But she has been brought up with the American culture, so she doesn't really quite understand why the family is lying to the grandmother. She doesn't think that's right. And it's, despite the title and despite the description I just gave you, this is not a overly emotional film. I went into this prepared to bawl my eyes out the entire time, and I ended up laughing, and I had a big smile on my face even at the end. This is not a huge tragic story. This was actually, it was kind of really uplifting. It was a beautiful story about this family, and it is, like I said, it is more of a comedy than it is a sad story. So don't be put off by the title or the subject. I do highly recommend giving this a shot. And I will say 90% of this is in Mandarin, so there is subtitles, so just be aware of that if that's something that you have difficulty with. So that's The Farewell. And then I've got here Ford versus Ferrari, which was also, I believe, up for Best Picture this past year. So this is a story that takes place in the 1960s and centers around the 24 Hours of Le Mans in France. And this follows two men. One is Matt Damon, and he plays Carroll Shelby, and he is a American car designer. And the other is Christian Bale, and he plays Ken Miles, and he's a British race car driver. And the two men work together to create a car by Ford that will beat Ferrari at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. So this is a story that is great even if you're not a big car person. So I don't know a lot about cars, nor do I particularly care about the race they were doing, but I still really enjoyed this. This was still something that I found really interesting and really pulled me in. I wanted to see, you know, are they going to beat Ferrari? What's going to happen? So this is a good choice. Even if, like I said, if your interest really doesn't lie in cars. So this is Ford versus Ferrari. And then I've got Bombshell. So this is a story about a couple women from Fox News taking down the CEO of Fox based on his history of sexual harassment. And this is a phenomenal movie. This blew me away. I knew it was going to be good, but I didn't expect it to be as good as it was. So this follows Charlize Theron, Nicole Kidman, and Margot Robbie are our main characters. And Charlize plays Megyn Kelly, and Nicole Kidman plays Gretchen Carlson, and then Margot Robbie is actually just like a composite character. She's not anybody real, but they took a bunch of real people's stories and put them all together to be the character that Margot Robbie plays. And so this follows the initial breaking news of the CEO sexually harassing his employees, and then the women of Fox really starting to all band together and come forward and speak out against what was happening to them. This was a really, really powerful film, and I highly, highly recommend this one. So that's Bombshell. And I've got three more. This is Where Did You Go Bernadette with Cate Blanchett, and this is based on the novel by Maria Semple. You don't have to have read the book to enjoy this. I have read it, and enjoyed the movie, and my family had not read it and also really enjoyed the movie. So you don't need to have that background if you don't choose to read the book first. This is a little hard to explain without kind of spoiling it, so I'm just going to give you the bare minimums. This is a story about Bernadette, who's played by Kate Blanchett, who was a very famous architect and an extremely creative person, and she had something happen that really took away her passion for her creative outlet and kind of sent her spiraling, and really kind of became a recluse. It's just her and her husband and her daughter, and this story really follows how she starts to reclaim her passion again and start to find her love for her creative outlets. This is excellent. They did a really good job translating the book into, adapting it into a movie. I can't honestly say that I remember all the details of the book. It's been so long, but what I did remember was here. And again, like I said, you don't have to have read it first. So this is a movie that is a little bit drama and a little bit comedy as well. So it's ultimately a very uplifting story. So this is Where Did You Go, Bernadette? And then the last two, this is the one I've seen most recently. This is Richard Jewell. And oh, guess what? Sam Rockwell's in this one too. So that's, I think, 3 that we had with Sam Rockwell. And this is about the bombing that happened during the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta at a musical performance. And the security guard who discovered the bomb and warned people and kept them away and kept this from being a bigger tragedy than it was, his name was Richard Jewell. And at first he was praised for being a hero, and then he became the FBI's #1 suspect, and they thought maybe he was just trying to be a hero cop and that he planted the bomb himself so that he could be the one that saved the day. So a majority of this movie is just about the FBI investigation into him, and it is incredibly infuriating to watch. I was not familiar with this story. This was something that I was very young when this really happened, so I didn't know who Richard Jewell was going in. I didn't realize what the case was against him and how that all played out. But this was a really, really well done movie, and like I said, it really infuriating because you're going to get so mad at the FBI and how they handle this investigation of Richard Jewell. So that's just called Richard Jewell. And then last but not least, probably my favorite one out of all of these that we have is Knives Out. And this has quite the all-star cast. Jamie Lee Curtis is in it. Captain America himself, Chris Evans. James Bond. We have Daniel Craig right there. There's a lot of famous people in this. And Christopher Plummer. This movie I expected to be like a spoof of murder mysteries, and it is not. So I completely misunderstood the previews for this film, and I was pleasantly surprised. I went in with 0 expectations and then gave it a perfect 10 because I loved it so much, and so did everybody in my family. This is a story about the Thromby family, and they are interesting. There's a lot of problems in this family. They are a very eclectic bunch of people, and they are all brought together for the birthday of Harlan Thromby, and that is Christopher Plummer. And then Harlan Thromby is found dead. And so starts a murder investigation to figure out who among this bizarre family is responsible for killing Harlan Thromby. And it is hilarious, and it is so good, and I cannot recommend this enough. If you like murder mysteries, you absolutely need to check this out. And so that is Knives Out. So those are just some of the movies that we have here that you may not have known that we had. Some of them came in while we were closed. We had ordered them before we had shut down in March, and they have since come in, so you probably wouldn't even know we had them. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew what sort of things we had here on our shelves. I know it's hard when you can't come in and browse, but you can request these at any time using our catalog right on our website, or you can just give us a call or send us an email. So until next time, happy reading, and thanks for watching.